Hi guys! I haven't had time to do a rewatch this week. Today I'm just going to be doing a quick video to talk about the time I went to see some of the sites that are featured in the TV show Twin Peaks. Okay, so because I've been a Twin Peaks fan for some time, a lot of my experiences of being a fan go way back. So I actually went to America to specifically go and see the sites from Twin Peaks back in 2002. It wasn't that long after 9/11, and the security on the airports and everything was really tight. There seemed to be quite a lot of delays because of the added security measures that were required to go through the airports. I kind of got into trouble a little bit because my name was truncated on one of my tickets for some bizarre reason, and yeah, just the security was really tight at the time. And I also, coming back, I had digital cameras weren't that big at the time, so coming back from my trip I had a film camera. I literally had to go through 4 X-ray machines because of the fact that I kind of I guess I shouldn't have done this, but I asked them if I could just take it through with me, my film, and they were kind of suspicious, I guess, and they made me go through 4 different X-rays and essentially fried my film. All of the photos I have of my trip are kind of blotchy yellow and green, and they're not much fun to look at. But so anyway, at the time of my trip, I was like early 20s. I was kind of fearless about traveling. I'm much less easygoing about it now. At the time, anything went, you know. I was staying in a hostel, sharing a room with complete strangers. Like, I was completely fine with like unisex showers and everything like that. Anyway, I went over to stay in Seattle. I can't remember how I actually found out about the Twin Peaks. I think I'd seen on the internet about like places where you could visit that had been featured in Twin Peaks. So I decided to go to Seattle because a lot of the sites were accessible from the city. I mean, not all of what you see in Twin Peaks was shot in Washington. I think they did a lot of stuff, or I think they did some stuff in California, I think. And also, the sites in the Pacific Northwest are kind of spread out a lot, so there are multiple sites where you could actually go. I would advise on having personal transport instead of relying on public transport. Basically, if you want to go, you can find information about where to go online. You can also look at the Gold box set because they have a interactive map, information about the unforgettable locations and how to find them. So that's what I did. As I say, I was staying in a hostel, and the hostel was on a block opposite one of those sex theatres. I don't know what they're called. You know, like they show like porn movies. And on the edge of this sex theatre, it was it had become home to maybe 10 or more homeless people who would gather there by day and night. Basically, to get to any of the public transport hubs, you would have to go past this sex theatre, and because I wasn't a driver at the time, I was relying on getting everywhere by bus and by other transport methods. So I would have to go by these homeless people. They were all men. There was this one particular man who kind of looked like Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski. You know, long grey hair and a shaggy beard, and he was a big guy. He was very animated. This this particular homeless man. In the UK we might call them tramps, but I think in other parts of the world that might mean something else. So I think in America they might be referred to as kind of vagrants or hobos or transients. But anyway, one morning I woke up and looked out of the window of the hostel. I was on the top bunk, which was fun, and I saw this guy trying to smash a parking meter to get the change inside of it. He was pretty desperate. Anyway, I started going off on my trips to Snoqualmie to see the Snoqualmie Falls, which is the waterfall featured in the credits, and alongside that it's supposed to be the Great Northern, which is actually called the Salish Lodge. So that kind of looks like it's in the middle of nowhere when you see it on the screen, but in actual fact it's kind of just right on the edge of a main road, a busy road as well. I mean, it was busy when I was there. I guess it's twice as busy like 16 years later. When I got there, I was surprised about the location because I thought it would be a little bit more remote and rural, but in actual fact it was really busy and there were a lot of people. There was a viewing platform where you could go and stand and see the falls from like above, and then you could take a walk down to the bottom of the falls as well, which I did. It's very beautiful to see this kind of moving water and to be among the trees there. And a lot of people at the time I was there were expressing surprise that there was so much water coming over the falls. There was a gift shop as well, Snoqualmie Falls gift shop, just beside the falls, and I was kind of surprised when I went that there wasn't anything at all mentioning Twin Peaks in the gift shop, because I would have thought that, you know, the show was kind of still bringing people to the area. I mean, I was there and I had come from like the UK right the way across the world, so I kind of was a little surprised at that. I really enjoyed my time at Snoqualmie Falls, and I felt like, I mean, it's such an iconic image for the show. I would expect to see that image again in season 3, and the whole time I was there I basically kept thinking, oh my god, I'm standing in the picture of Twin Peaks basically. I mean, it was so exciting for me as a rampant fan to be in that position. I also went I also went over to North Bend, which is where the diner is, the Double R Diner, which is actually, I think it's called Tweedies or Tweeds. And when I was there, there was like a Twin Peaks menu, you know, I think they called it the Home of Twin Peaks or something like that, and they, you know, they had like cherry pies and stuff like that, but the actual experience of the diner was it was nothing like kind of what I expected it to be. I kind of would have thought like the people who run that place maybe would capitalize a little bit more on the Twin Peaks experience, but I think that the people who have the diner kind of want to keep it like more of a regular type of place. And yeah, it looked nothing like, I mean, there had been a fire, I think, at some point between the show ending and when I went, and the whole place had been sort of gutted out and looked nothing like the diner that you might imagine. I have seen that they have actually refurbished the diner for season 3, so if you want to see it like it was or like it's gonna be, then you might want to pop over to the diner. It's in North Bend and you can't really miss it because it's kind of right in the middle of North Bend. Also, the Twin Peaks that are actually the Twin Peaks aren't actually Twin Peaks. There is like a mountain, I think it's Mount Si. And it's basically like, you know, because I live in a place where there is kind of no big mountains or anything like that, so this was kind of a strange thing to see a huge piece of rock just at the end of the street, but that's what it's like. And it's very beautiful, very imposing. So anyway, I took a few trips out from Seattle, and when I got back to my accommodation, the hobo, the homeless guy, who looked like Jeff Bridges, he started to speak to me quite a lot, and he started calling me Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. I mean, this was a period I was in my early 20s, and yes, I did wear like double braids, which may have been a factor in why he called me Laura Ingalls. I also had quite a rural dress sense, which I guess contributed to my nickname. Anyway, he kept calling me Laura Ingalls, so every time I would go by, he would kind of come up behind me and start skipping along and dancing behind me and shouting, "There she goes, Laura Ingalls." So anyway, I was coming back one day. I'd become quite a little bit intimidated by this guy, but I wasn't exactly scared, but I thought, you know, he was very loud, and he'd obviously identified me and was familiar with me walking by. And so this one day I was coming back, and I hear him shout, and then in my mind I thought he said, "I'm back." And he started running after me down the street, and I looked back and I saw this giant hulk of a guy chasing me down the street in Seattle. I just ran for my life. And I could hear him behind going, "Hey Laura!" And I ran and ran and ran until I got back to a place of safety. And then I stopped and I thought, hang on a minute, he didn't say that. He couldn't have said that. He actually said, "Hey Laura, I need $1." Okay, so I guess I was wrapped up in the Twin Peaks experience just a little bit too much. Anyway, going to see the sights of Twin Peaks is something I would recommend. I'm quite excited to see where they're going to film in the new series, because I've heard that they are going to be situated in Las Vegas as well as in France. I really would like to go over to France sometime and have a look around there. If they do any filming there, I would definitely go over and kind of stalk the place. I think if you're like a complete film or TV show nut and you really kind of like something, then it's worth doing. I mean, it's something that I will always remember for the rest of my life, and I don't think I will ever go over there again. It's just a long way for me to have to travel, and I think once you've seen it and you've been there. But yeah, it's definitely something I would recommend, especially if you have closer access to it. If you're like a huge fan and you live in America, I would definitely go, because I think it would be a lot easier to get there. Basically, when I was in Seattle, I mean, I had travelled a little bit at my stage of life, but what it revealed to me was actually the fact that Twin Peaks is actually a mythical place, and the kind of society that Lynch and Frost have depicted is actually, I don't think it's really typical of anywhere I saw in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest. There are things like ethnic diversity that aren't accurately represented, and also the fact that the feeling of remoteness that you get when you watch Twin Peaks. I don't actually think that exists. I got the sense that, you know, the Pacific Northwest was kind of very much an industrialized kind of place, and that actually the fictional Pacific Northwest, which we see in Twin Peaks, it's a kind of stunted place, I think, that is perhaps closer to a period of time that has gone before. One thing I thought when I was there was, excuse me, there were so many logging trucks, and I couldn't believe how much like wood was being cut down. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but you know, I guess that is a big industry there. But like every other vehicle on the road was like a logging truck with massive logs. And one moment that did kind of amuse me when I was in Seattle was that there was this show on, and they had those I don't know what they're called. I'm sure there's a name for this. I'm sure that there's an actual term for this, but there was a couple of guys who were dressed in like a strange kind of uniform, kind of braces and everything, and they were dancing, or like they had logs in water in like a big tank, and they were basically rolling the logs and being able to stand upright on them without falling off. Log rolling? I don't know what it's called, but it was an amusing moment that was kind of like, yeah, that there are some strange things in the world. I also met a fair share of strange people while I was there who kind of made me feel like I was actually in Twin Peaks at times. But anyway, that's all that I'm going to say today. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, at TheLogSadie, and you can also subscribe to this channel if you wish. And I mean, thank you for watching, and goodbye.